Hi, this is Debbie from Organic Oasis in California, Zone 9B. Today we're going to be making crockpot ham and bean soup. If you're like me, I'm not a ham eater, but once a year during the holidays, I order a ham from Honey Baked Ham. And it's something my mom did, and now I took over the tradition. And every year, Christmas Eve, we order this ham and we eat it. And it's really the only time, like once a year, that I ever eat ham. I'm just not a big ham eater. We eat chicken and fish, but we're just not big beef and ham eaters, Tim and I. But this year I ordered a large ham because I was having a lot of my family over for the holidays for Christmas Eve dinner. And I ended up with this large ham bone and I threw it in the freezer. And now I'm thinking, it'd be nice to make a ham and bean soup. And so I've got this giant ham bone. I don't know if you can see this. I don't really want to pick it up because my hands will get real greasy, but it's this big giant ham bone. Now ham has a lot of salt in it. So this soup recipe, I'm not going to put any salt in it, but this soup recipe, I tweaked it. I'm at a point in my cooking career, I've been cooking for many, many years, that I can kind of change recipes and tweak them and even sometimes create my own recipes. So today I'm adding some vegetables to this ham and bean soup, not really traditional, but I'm throwing in some other things from our garden just to give the soup a boost of nutrition. So we'll be putting in, if you follow me today with this recipe, here's the ingredients we'll be putting in. We'll be putting in some carrots, celery, onion, and we'll be putting in garlic. We'll be putting in spices such as bay leaf and thyme, paprika, and pepper. I won't be putting in salt. And of course, the beans. And I'll be throwing in some kale at the end. Some of it will be from our garden, and you'll be seeing a picture of it up here. Tim and I grow a lot of vegetables in the summer, and I advise everyone to grow a bean plant because they're really easy and you'll get a lot of beans. It's really fun to grow. It's great for kids to watch. They grow quick and they're fun to pick. But sometimes you end up with an abundance. And so what do you do with them? You can them or you freeze them or you dehydrate them. And in this case, I just threw some cherry tomatoes in a Ziploc bag, in a freezer bag, and it's the food saver. I just threw the cherry tomatoes. I didn't do anything to process them. I just threw the cherry tomatoes into the food saver and froze them. So I'll be putting in 13 ounces of the cherry tomatoes, still frozen. And then my beans, I have made a video you can look for on our channel, our Organic Oasis channel, that I show how I do the beans. And basically, I do not blanch them. I just take the green beans, cut them, and throw them in, again, a food saver bag, freeze them. And they come out perfectly fine. I'm going to throw these in frozen. They come out perfectly fine after being in a crock pot all day. They're soft, they're nutritious, they're great. So I'll be adding these. And again, like I said, at the end, some of the things are optional. You could add some diced tomatoes if you'd like. You could even add maybe tomato sauce if you want it with more of a tomato flavor. But stick with me and let's make this delicious recipe together. So the first thing we're going to do here is I've got my crock pot and I have the ham bone in here. And I'm not going to remove anything from the ham bone. I'm just going to cook it and then strip it after I cook it all day. I have my beans. These are the Great Northern beans. I've soaked them overnight. See how nice and big they've become? Now they've absorbed all this water. So now I'm going to strain these beans and I'm going to just pour these over into the crock pot. Okay, so I have my rinsed and strained beans. I'm just going to pour these over. It's 1 pound of beans. And you can use northern beans. You can use 15 bean mix, navy bean. You could use any beans you want, but I think with ham, I like the white beans. So I love the northern. So that's what I decided to use. Next, we're going to go ahead and we're going to chop up this onion. Here we go, onions into the pot. Now we'll chop the carrots up. You could, if you wanted, put the carrots in whole. I like to slice them. And you could obviously put in, if you have big carrots, it's easier to process them and get them ready. But Tim and I snack on these little carrots. We buy the little ones because the dogs love them and we like to eat them and our grandson likes to eat them. We do have carrots growing outside, but they're not ready to harvest. The homegrown carrots, there's nothing better than them. They're so sweet. They're so delicious. But this time of year, I've got all the greens on there, but the carrot has not. It hasn't been warm enough for the carrots to actually get ready to harvest yet. In another couple months, early spring, I'll be harvesting a lot of carrots, and I can't wait. We got our carrots in there. Gonna get our celery. I always chop off the ends. Again, I have celery growing outside. And I started this celery that I'm growing outside. I actually started from a celery stalk from Trader Joe's. But my celery is, again, it's at this time of year, it's young. And you don't want to strip too much of it or you're going to end up killing the plant because it puts it in shock. And so we're getting some freezing temperatures right now in California, Northern California. We've had a lot of frost warnings and really cool weather. I just don't want to take too much of the plant where I end up putting it in shock and then it dies. So I just went out to the garden and I harvested a few of my celery stalks, and I mentioned that my celery and kale and most of the fall plants that we have out there, at this time of year, they're just not really producing a lot. So the celery is growing, but you can see the stalks are small. Later, when it starts to warm up, early spring, they'll just be this huge, massive growth. And that'll be the time when we really can enjoy our fall plants here in Northern California. I can use these, but like I said, if I take too much of the kale or too much of the celery with our frost coming and like the weather getting really cold, the plant could go into shock and it may not rebound. So I'm very, very careful about how much I pull off a fall plant right now at this time of year, middle of January, when we're still getting really cold temperatures. But I did get 2 little stalks and I'm going to add them to my bean soup. So here's my little celery stalks. I know they look tiny, but you know what? The flavor on the homegrown celery is amazing. So this will go in here. It is much more strong. The flavor is much more strong than the store-bought celery. We're putting in the garlic. I already put in a little bit right there. We're going to go ahead and add, it's 2 to 3, say 3 to 4 cloves, but if I'm not using my own garlic, I usually just put in about 2 big teaspoons. We're going to add a bay leaf here. 1 nice, beautiful bay leaf. We're going to put in thyme, which I'm going to be growing thyme. I always grow thyme, but right now I do not have thyme. So I had to buy store-bought ground thyme. I'm just going to put in 1 teaspoon of ground thyme. Paprika, I don't have smoked, but I love paprika. I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of paprika. I have pepper. We're going to put in about 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. I'm going to add in my frozen cherry tomatoes from Tomato Tim from the garden. Just dump the entire thing in. It will thaw, and over time in the crock pot, it will cook down and just add all its nutrition and juices. Same with these beans. Just going to put the beans in here. As you can see, there's a mixture of purple and green. I need the lid to go on, so I'm going to start to kind of break this up so that the lid can go on. This is looking delicious. Okay. And the last thing we're going to put in here is 8 cups of water. You could use broth if you like, bone broth, vegetable broth. I'm just putting in water. The ham bone is going to add enough flavor where I do not need anything else, just water, filtered water. As you can see, this is way filling up. I'm not going to put all the water in because I don't want my crock pot to go over. So I'm just going to put in, so I put in probably 6. I think I put in about 6 cups of water. Just put it until it fills up. If you have a bigger pot, put in all 8 cups. But in my case, I couldn't fit it in. So there we go. Doesn't that look beautiful? So I went ahead and started my crock pot, and I put my ham and bean soup on slow cook on high for 6 hours. And as you can see, I put a towel underneath it because I showed you that my pot is filled to the brim here. And I'm a little concerned that as it boils, it may actually spill over the edge, and I don't want to mess on my counter. So I did put a towel under to catch anything. And I'm going to go ahead and cook this for 6 hours. And tonight, when I go to serve it for Tim and I, our delicious dinner, I'm going to go ahead and add the kale, and we'll do a taste test and see how this comes out. The soup has been cooking on high for 6 hours. I took out the ham bone and I shredded the ham off of it, and I'm going to add the ham back in along with 2 cups of chopped kale and spinach. Nice. The soup is nice and hot. Right now, this is just the broth with all the vegetables. Doesn't this look delicious? It's got the beans. There's some pieces of ham in here that fell off the bone. And then I took the bones out and shredded, picked all the meat off and threw as much of the fat and the grizzle. I put that into my city compost. So now I'm going to pour this back in here. Most of this is just plain ham, the meat. My dog was hanging around begging for some of the ham grizzle, so I gave her some of the grizzle and and a little bit of the meat. So this looks really good. If you find any other pieces of bone, like this actually is a piece of the bone, I'm going to pull this out and pull any meat off of it, throw the bone away. And then I went ahead and picked some of my kale outside. You can see it's in here. It's the curly type of kale, and I washed it and chopped it up. And then I had spinach that I wanted to use up from the refrigerator, so that's mixed with it. I'm going to pour all of this in here and let this simmer for about 15 minutes. And then it's going to be ready to eat. It's been 15 minutes and the kale is nice and wilted in here. I have all the bones out of the soup, and it's just nice ham meat mixed with the beans and all the vegetables. And see how lovely the broth came out, even though I just used water. I know this is going to taste delicious. The tomatoes, see how they cook down? I just had frozen cherry tomatoes from our garden, but you can see how they've cooked down and just added this delicious flavor to the broth. So now I'm going to go ahead and plate this up. I put 2 big heaping scoops in here. So let me go ahead and pour this delicious ham and bean crockpot soup into the bowl. It smells so good and it looks so yummy. See how wonderful this looks? So the bean soup is finished, and it looks delicious, and I'm just going to give it a little taste. It's still really hot. Again, it's a winner. This soup is really delicious. So if you ever have ham, go ahead and save your ham bone. You can just throw it in a Ziploc baggie, throw it into the freezer. And then later, whenever, maybe in the middle of winter when it's freezing, you can go ahead and try this bean and ham bone recipe. And as you see, I just basically soak the beans, the dry beans overnight, threw the ham bone in, threw the beans in, water, and then I just threw in my carrots, celery, onion, and then lots of spices, and then whatever vegetables you have in your pantry that you want to use up. If it's green beans, which I threw in, and I threw in the frozen cherry tomatoes, you might have potatoes you want to put in, broccoli, cauliflower. I mean, name it, you name it. You could put in any vegetables that you want and turn this into a delicious vegetable soup with the ham bone. Um, Even if you're not a ham lover, and I really am not a ham lover, but this soup is really, really good. And like I said, I only purchase ham and eat it like once a year. So this is a treat for us. And I probably wouldn't eat this every day, but it is wonderful. It's a hearty, hearty, delicious meal. And in the middle of winter, it just hits a spot. Tim and I are just having it with crackers, so no big thing. I thought about making the cornbread or I also make sourdough, but I didn't get around to it today. It'll be fine with and nice and nutritious and filling just with the crackers. So I hope you enjoy this recipe. I hope you try this recipe and follow along with Tim and me in our journey in organic Oasis in suburbia in California, Zone 9B. Thanks for watching.